Welcome back to another episode of the ASUN Gameday podcast. I'm your host, William Hall. We had a great set of games last week. Another set of games coming up this week. I mean, it's the third week of conference play, and we're just getting going. Let's jump right into it. Let's talk women's basketball. Now, we had three, and then there were two. Going into last week's games, Austin Peay, EKU, and FGCU were all undefeated. We knew something was going to happen because FGCU and Austin Peay played. As we're sitting here now, FGCU and EKU are 4-0. First with EKU, I've been talking about this team for a few weeks now. Obviously, they got it going on. They went on the road. They picked up some key wins. I think the North Alabama is going to be a team that's solid. And I think that win will definitely help. And then I think the bigger of the two wins that EKU got, obviously, in my opinion, was UCA. I think that we're still, at least I am still thinking about Central Arkansas as one of the best women's basketball teams in our conference. Again, as we've said, you've got to get those wins when you can get them. In EKU getting that road victory against Central Arkansas, that was a big game. One of the games we were definitely keeping our eyes on going into last week's slate. And then FGCU. And I will go ahead and say it, until their season ends, until they're not playing anymore, I can never just say that they will not be in the mix and potentially could walk out of this season with another women's basketball championship. FGCU went on the road and beat Austin Peay. They beat Lipscomb. And now they're 4-0. They're sitting right at the top of the conference standings on the women's side at 4-0 alongside EKU. I don't think that this loss just got rid of Austin Peay in the big scheme of things, although we did say going into that game that they had FGCU and Stetson coming in that they had a tough slate, Austin Peay did. And, you know, I do feel like that team, the body of work that they've had this season, taking those losses is not enough to just take them out of the picture and just write them off. They lost to FGCU. They did lose to Stetson. So I think that at 2-2, you do look at that team a little differently. But again, the body of work was there. The winning streak was there. Those were tough games that they had to compete with, tough teams that they had coming into their building. And I think they'll be okay. But EKU and FGCU on the women's side are starting to try to maybe get to separate themselves. I mean, when you get those wins against those bigger programs, I mean, FGCU and EKU now both have a win against Central Arkansas. It's making the matchup when those teams face off, the Colonels and the Eagles, look like it could be for a whole lot now when you look at how teams are positioned and the wins that they have. And I think that this early season has showed that those two teams are really putting in the work to separate themselves. And I think that's what you need to do so that if you have the bad game, the off game, and you get a loss here and there, because it's going to happen. It's a long season, 18 games. But you've got those wins and you're building them up. And of course, you want to go 18-0, but I think that equity that you can build with that team, that momentum, that confidence that these early games build against these tougher opponents, and doing it on the road, I think that does a lot for your team's confidence moving forward in this season as we make our way down to the Jacksonville for the ASUN tournament. On the men's side, I think that, you know, there's no way that we could look at the men's basketball side of the ASUN and not talk about Queens. I think that Queens, I had them picked in the matchup of the week last week on the road at Jacksonville. They handled business, giving Jacksonville its first loss at home. And I wanted to see more, and they kind of showed it to me. I think that three-point shooting that Queens has, when it's on, and if it's on, that's a problem. I mean, we already knew about Chris Ashby. We already knew about what he could do, but the deep threat that he brings, and that whole entire team, I think, adds another element to the Royals about what they can bring when they're on the floor, and another level of I guess the physicality that they can bring as well, playing down low, because They were banging with Jacksonville down low. I went to that game, I watched that game, and they were able to withstand that and then add it on with the deep threat that they have. I think that Queens is going to be a problem. I don't know if that's surprising. I don't want to say that like it's a big revelation that's coming that Queens is going to be an issue. I think that, obviously they were picked first by the coaches. They're expected to be at the top of the conference, expected to be high in the standings, expected to challenge for a championship, to make a strong run in the tournament like they did last year. But again, those are preseason predictions. So it always means a little bit more when you get into the season and you can kind of see that those teams that we thought were going to be something are actually putting that, I guess, that expectation, that prediction is coming true, right as you see it developing week to week. I think that Lipscomb obviously had a split week, and I think Lipscomb is going to be okay. I'm not that road trip that Lipscomb had. I don't think that they are out of it by far. I think that a team that I am a little bit, I guess, surprised at is it will be. Surprise is not the word. Let me take that back. Let me walk that back a little bit. I'm not surprised. They were tough games. Central Arkansas, of where I thought that they were last week, that they were 2-0. They did go on the road, EKU and Bellarmine, but both of those games were overtime games. And I really want to see if losing those two games the way that they did overtime, you're paying extra time on the road. I really want to see Central Arkansas if they can get back on track, because I don't think that this is a bad team by any stretch. I don't think that these two losses should change much. But now you have to see, because now you've got, again, another team who is also 2-2, but is a different looking 2-2, EKU. Where are those teams going? Are they going in different directions? Again, that was only the second week of conference play, so we're not talking about a team that's going on a 4-game losing streak or a 4-game winning streak. It's just, 2-0, 0-2. Now they're both 2-2. But you still kind of look at the tendencies. You want to kind of look at the matchups and see, could these teams be trending in different directions? Obviously, it's very early to be trying to make that prediction, but you kind of look at the whole as a whole again, and you just wonder where they're going. So I want to see what UCA does this weekend, as well as EKU. And of course, men's basketball on the ASUN side, there's one other team that couldn't talk about men's basketball without mentioning, but I'm going to bring a special guest to come in. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back to discuss Austin Peay men's basketball.
Welcome to the Atlantic Sun, where heart-pounding moments are born and where champions rise above, where speed defies limits and precision finds its mark, where millions of fans nationwide cheer for excellence, determination, and fairness, where public, private, and faith-based schools compete side by side, fostering sportsmanship and unity. From the beaches to the mountains, the Atlantic Sun is the destination.
We are back, and I am joined by Brian Rives, the voice of the Govs. Brian, how are you?
Hey, very well, my friend. Good to be with you, William.
Thank you. Appreciate your time joining us here on the ASUN Gameday podcast. And first of all, let's get right to it. Austin Peay men's basketball this year has been an exciting team to watch. Arguably the best team in the conference right now. No, it's very early, but at 4-0, and as a person who's watched this team over the years and seen them, what have you noticed about this squad that Corey Gibson has on the court?
Well, first, glad to be with you. Always fun to talk and promote ASUN basketball. This Governor team this year has come together quicker than I think any team in a long time. Statistically, you're looking at the best start since like 2000, 2001. Already with 10 wins under your belt, a great 2-game sweep through Florida last week, and off to a 4-0 start in conference play. I think even Coach Gibson would tell you this team's probably come together a little quicker than anticipated. A lot of new pieces. You had Tate McCubbin, the reigning ASUN freshman of the year. You had Anton Brookshire, that steadying force. but you add in a Colin Parker, you add in a freshman like Zyree Collins, and Rashad Marshall transfers in to work the low post. So you knew those pieces had to come together. A very tough non-conference schedule has gotten them ready for what I think could be a great conference run in the ASUN.
You just ran through five names of a
Hey, sorry,
state.
it's easy for a radio guy.
Yeah, no, but to that point, like you just rattled those names off, and when you start saying that and speak about that, it just shows you the weapons that are on the floor every night for this team. That offensively, one of the top scoring teams in the league, but I think even more the defense that this team also does.
That's
Like
it.
they don't let you. They're smothering. They don't let you score. I think that's obviously a recipe for success. And looking at this team last year was a great season. The year before, an even better season. In year three of Corey Gibson, his tenure here, coming back home to Austin Peay. Oh, what do you think he has done that's so special with building that culture of that team?
I think he's allowed the young men to be themselves. When you look at the play on the floor, you mentioned the offensive punch, 80 points a game, fourth best in the ASUN. The defense, like you said, which is his trademark. He played for Coach Dave Luce, a Hall of Famer, number one defense in the ASUN right now, giving up just over 69 points a game. But those guys that are on the floor for him, they know they can be themselves. They can make a mistake and not know the bench is quickly where they're going. They can try something maybe offensively or try to dart a pass through a crowded lane or on a baseline lob or something that, a lot of coaches or some other teams wouldn't allow that to happen unless it's in practice. Coach Gibson wants his team to play free. They want this team to be themselves, to be strong in their own personalities on the floor. And you see that. You've got a Zyree Collins who, the reigning newcomer of the week, reigning player of the week, who is a dribble drive guy. He's not afraid to put it on the bounce and go attack. And Coach Gibson's not afraid to let him have that freedom to go attack. Or he's not afraid to let him step outside and, average, 6 or 7 assists a game, which is what he's done so far in conference play. You look at McCubbin, the year he had last year and what he's doing this year. His game's kind of morphed into more of an outside game this year, more than what we saw late in the year last year with his back to the basket. So, again, whatever the strength is of that individual player, Gibbs allowing them to play that to the hilt. And I think they appreciate that. You appreciate someone who's been there. They know the blood, sweat, and tears that they put on the floor for Austin Peay was put on the floor by Coach Corey Gibson when his time here. He was part of an undefeated, perfect regular season back in a previous conference. So they know the formula is there. He knows how to win. He knows what it takes to win in a league play. And I think they just appreciate his approach to them as players.
Yeah, it's been great to see the growth of this team of 2 years ago when he got there, immediately going to the final. Even last year, that team starting to come together and it kind of looked like there may be a step back, and the next thing you know, they're right there in the thick of things towards the end of the season. And now where they are now, leading the pack, so to speak. So just looking at this season so far, let's look at this year, conference play. You got Jacksonville and North Florida. They come through your building. Then you go on the road and good wins against FGC and Stetson on the road.
Yeah.
Looking at this weekend, it is a weekend in the state of Tennessee. You've got EKU coming in at home, and then you got the one
Bison
with Lipscomb. So for this week, what if we were to talk again next week, and Austin Peay is 6-0, you've had EKU, who is always a threat to come in, and you get that game at home, and then you go and you break that streak against Lipscomb and get that win against the Bisons. What do you think it will take for Austin Peay to get those two games? Because these are two tough ones. Every game in ASUN play is, but this
they're
week
huge,
especially. Yeah,
they're huge. Folks that are Governor fans, folks that are Eastern Kentucky Colonel fans know this rivalry goes back 2 different conferences.
Mm-hmm.
We've made jumps to different conferences, and we've always been partnered up. So there's a long-standing rivalry with those folks from Richmond, Kentucky, and it's going to be a hard-fought game. I appreciate what that group does. Their 40-minute approach, as they say, and what they want to do to you. for us to beat Eastern, it's about ball security. You look at us, we're plus 6 in turnover margin almost. I think officially it's like 5-9 and change, but I say plus 6. We've got to value the basketball. We've got to turn them over. You look at us, I think we're number 2 in assists per game, so we've got to create opportunities, but we've got to value the basketball against Eastern Kentucky and defend that 3-point line. No matter what comes through that maroon and gray, they're going to shoot the long ball, and we got to defend the arc, and we've got to do it well at home. Go to Lipscomb. I wish I knew that magic formula because you alluded to it. It's been a long time since we've gone on to the west end of Nashville and came home with a W. Something about that purple and gold on that end of the floor and on that side of town just seems to bewilder us. But again, it's a different style of play from Lipscomb, playing through that high post. I think we've done a better job of how we integrate our offense and how we've integrated Rashad Marshall and Parker and even to a little bit with Creighton Maresh as well, how we play through the high post now. So I think we may be a little better prepared for what Lipscomb can throw at us in that avenue. But again, for us to get to that point, for that I'm not even going to say what you said, but to be where we are next week, we've got to value the basketball. We've got to defend the 3-point line, and we've got to keep improving rebounding-wise. We're 5th in the ASUN in rebounding. We've got to do a better job of cleaning that glass and creating some second-chance opportunities for our offense on our own end of the floor.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to both of those games. Bit of a spoiler, that Saturday game may or may not be the ASUN matchup of the week. So I think there's a lot of anticipation going into that game. Not looking past Thursday's game with EKU as well. So again, I'm very excited about seeing this team. I think it's great that they bring a lot of intensity and a lot of energy to the floor when they play. It's great to see the success that's going on in this season in Clarksville. We're going to be locked in, seeing how Austin Peay does the rest of this season, and also looking forward to seeing you down here in Jacksonville for the tournament in March.
I can't wait. I have to admit, I love that aspect of that neutral site, of that commonality of everyone converging on one central spot to have kind of equal footing to go forward. But, hey, listen, I know we're tooting our own horn here, but so far, when I look at Queens, when I look at West Georgia and that 1-2 scoring punch that they've got, when I look across this league, we got very lucky to get out of there against Florida Gulf Coast and against Stetson to get W's. I know how good the quality of basketball in this league has become. I'm thrilled that my school, Austin Peay, has become a part of that ascent to be better and better at our level. But this is a quality basketball conference. We're going to surprise some people with how good we play, not only Austin Peay, but I think across the ASUN as a whole. And I think that when we get to Jacksonville, when we get to that tournament week on the women's side too, there's some special play on the women's side as well.
Absolutely.
There's going to be a lot of eyes on that conference tournament, and that makes me proud to be a part of it.
We love to hear it, love to see it. Can't wait to get to the tournament, but we got a lot of weeks of ASUN conference play left to go. So, Brian, once again, thank you for joining me today, and we'll talk soon.
William, I appreciate it. Glad to join you anytime, and always the best cheer in all of college sports. Let's go, Peay.
Loved it.
We will be relocating our conference headquarters to the city of Jacksonville, and we're really excited to help be fuel to your fire of what you've got going on here in the city of Jacksonville.
Hang another banner. ASUN banners. The ASUN Championship, and are going to the NCAA tournament for the first time. ASUN Championship.
Welcome back. So glad Brian took some time to talk to us here on the ASUN Gameday podcast. And now let's talk about our weekly awards that we had this week. On the men's side, no surprise, Austin Peay swept player and newcomer Zyree Collins, helped Austin Peay stay undefeated in conference play, 21 points per game average. He also averaged 6.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 3.5 steals in those 2 wins for the Govs. On the women's side, 4 awards went out, a little more than normal. Liz Fryhofer from EKU averaged 18 points, 8.5 rebounds in a pair of EKU wins. That included a 26-point outing against North Alabama. Sydney Tolbert, West Georgia, averaged 19 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds in 2 victories for the Wolves. Sanai Douglas from FGCU, newcomer of the week, helped the Eagles to 2 wins on the road with an average of 16 points per game. And our freshman of the week, Gabby Jackson from North Alabama, averaged 17 points, 9.5 rebounds, and a 1-1 week for the Lions. And in case I skipped over that, Liz Fryhofer from EKU and Sydney Tolbert from West Georgia, both of them were awarded ASUN Player of the Week in women's basketball. So as we've talked about, things are heating up. 2 players of the week. Love to see it. Now let's talk about some of our key matchups we've got coming into this week's action. On the men's side on Thursday, there are 2 games that I got my eyes on. The first would be Jacksonville at Central Arkansas. Jacksonville finally got their first conference win, but they're about to have to kind of try to keep that going, build that momentum. Interested to see if they can do that. And likewise, as I mentioned earlier, I'm very interested to see what UCA does coming off those 2 overtime losses on the road last week. The Bears are back at home in Conway, so let's see what they've got. And then Queens at FGCU. No, that's a good one. That's a good one. The Royals put their undefeated conference record on the line on the road at FGCU. And last season, if you remember, there was a streak the Royals had then that was snapped in that building. So I know FGCU would love to be able to put an end to this year's winning streak by the Royals and get a little revenge for that postseason exit that Queens handed them last year. On the women's side, we've got Lipscomb at EKU. Now, these teams have traded wins the last 4 times they've matched up. But this game in Richmond, the Colonels are 8-2 at home this year, and Lipscomb only has 1 victory on the road. So I think that obviously kind of looks on paper like it'll favor EKU, but it still should be a good game. I think those teams always are very competitive when they match up with each other. And FGCU at West Georgia. The Eagles seem to be finding their stride. We've talked about, how 4-0, the road wins that they had last week. And West Georgia, at the same time, is 3-1, though. The Eagles the Wolves are looking for their first win against the Eagles. They joined the conference, obviously, last year. They lost 2 games to FGCU. But I think this has the makings of a game that West Georgia may be able to get one. So that's the game I've got circled. That's the game I've got circled on my list. Now the fun part. The fun begins. It's time for the power rankings. And I'm going to give these out kind of quick this week. Not going to take a lot of time digging too deep into them. But and we're going to start with men's. And this week I'm going to go top to bottom. Number 1 on the men's side is Austin Peay. I think there's been a lot said about the Govs this season, this year, on this episode. I think they are the top team on the men's basketball side. And right behind them at a close number 2 is Queens. 3 would be Lipscomb. I know the Bisons had a 1-1 split week, but I think they're still I will put them at 3 right now. West Georgia is at 4. And EKU is at 5. EKU's jumped up a lot. I think those 2 wins that they had last week were impressive to me. And number 6 will be Stetson in the men's power rankings. On the women's side, number 1, I'm going to go EKU from a power ranking standpoint. I understand that FGCU is also 4-0 and FGCU is number 2. But I think right now EKU has been playing better for longer. So I'm going to lean towards the consistency of the Colonels and give them number 1 right now. FGCU number 2. West Georgia would be number 3, a 3-1 Wolves team. That FGCU West Georgia matchup, as I mentioned earlier, got a lot of eyes on that. 4 is Central Arkansas. They've taken a little bit of a step back, but I just can't say that they're not a strong team. Not completely, not ready to make that declaration yet. 5 will be Jacksonville. I think the Dolphins are hanging around. They're still in the top half of the conference, along with the 6th team on the women's side is also Stetson. I think Stetson has struggled a bit, but overall, I still think they are in the top half. And this week, that's where the top 6. I know there's a team that was at the top and they're no longer in the top 6. I think they'll be right back there. I think they'll be back hopefully next week. But we'll be back with one more break before we talk about the ASUN matchup of the week. It is time to talk about the ASUN matchup of the week. And I think this game kind of writes itself. Austin Peay at Lipscomb. It's the one Saturday. It's the matchup that it's a game between two of the top scoring teams in the conference. So I think that's already ready to see the fireworks go out. Austin Peay is at 80.6 points per game. Lipscomb a little bit higher at 81.6. And I think that is a recipe for a lot of points to be scored. However, this is also a matchup of two of the best defenses in the conference. Austin Peay is the best defense statistically in the ASUN. They hold teams to under 70 points per game. They're holding teams at 43% shooting from the floor. That's the best in the conference. Now, Lipscomb is not far behind. They're fourth in opponent scoring. They're third in opponent's field goal percentage. But that's a more interesting layer to this matchup because you've got two teams that score a lot, but at the same time they don't allow a lot of scoring. So that's going to be a tough game within the game, so to speak, about which of those teams can get their defense going, or does defense go out the window and we just got a shootout going on in Nashville? I don't know. We'll have to see. Austin Peay maybe ahead in the standings, maybe ahead in the stats, but the history of this matchup favors the Bisons. They are on a 7-game winning streak against the Govs. Austin Peay has not beaten Lipscomb since 2015. That's a 10-year drought since they've gotten a win against the Bisons. Is this Austin Peay's year, or does Lipscomb make it 8 in a row and improve to 15-1 all-time against the Govs? There's only one way to find out. Tune in. All eyes are going to be on the Music City Saturday, 6 p.m. Central Time. Austin Peay at Lipscomb, ASUN matchup of the week. That's just the matchup of the week on Saturday. We've got a lot of games going on Saturday and even more Thursday before we even get to Saturday. I'm just so excited. It's week 3. ASUN conference action is in full effect. The ASUN Gameday podcast will be locked in on everything as well. See you all next week. I'm William Hall, signing off.